Recording in progress.
Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the May 27th, 2025, 6 p.m. Monthly board meeting of the Pittsburgh City Review Board. We're sort of in a hybrid situation. I believe that there are 4 of us members online this evening, and we also have our solicitor online this evening. Since the camera is over there, I don't know who's sitting in the chair, but I could make some guesses here. I know that we have Mr. Robinson, who is not able to make it tonight. He's traveling. Do we have any other call-offs?
No.
Okay, so Ms. Shields is in the audience and everybody else, right? Okay. So it looks like we're on mute with Beth, so can't tell there. All right. I think I see the head of, okay, there's Karen, Ms. Shields. Alrighty. Did I get everybody? Okay. So our first item of business is the approval of our April 22nd board meeting. Again, that was last time at the Grayson Center also. Everybody should have received these about 7-8 days ago. So has everybody had a chance to read those minutes? And if so, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion, changes, deletions, additions? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting has been approved. Okay, I have no other remarks, and just one sad statement that I think that was something like 23% of the people came out and voted last week, which is a sad statement, but I don't know. That's my statement for today. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our board business followed by case review, and then we will have a public comment. So for those of you out online, if you want to put it in the chat, us members online will keep an eye on that along with others. And then those in the audience, please feel free at that time to come up and speak. But you all have 3 minutes. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the chair's report, which I have none. Beth, your executive report. And if you're talking, we're not able to hear you. Not good.
You can't hear me?
Now we can. Perfect.
Okay. All right.
We got an echo because your phone is on. So you mute your phone because we got an echo going. Now nothing.
Trying to mute my.
Okay.
See, we're not professional producers of videos. Now
We're good.
I am muted.
Not anymore.
I'm not muted anymore.
You're good now.
Okay, my apologies.
It
I wish
everything. Like I don't know how to just mute my laptop. It's muting it on Zoom.
Okay. members, we have with us tonight a team member. Mr. Scott Beatty, Dr. Scott Beatty. He came on, he brings with him immense experience in the education. He served as adjunct faculty in various institutions. He has.
That's
his,
what I can hearing you.
sociology.
Greg, can you hear well?
I'm having a difficult time being able to
Thanks.
hear.
Galen, thanks.
Do you think it would be helpful if I went to another room?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Mr. Davis, is that better?
Yes,
That is better.
Okay,
That's way better, man.
okay. Just apologies to everybody. This is, I think we'll do this again. Okay, we have a new team member, Miss Dr. Scott Beatty, joined the team last week. He comes with a tremendous background in the education field. He has served as adjunct faculty in a number of different local institutions and online institutions. He was awarded a PhD in sociology with a emphasis in leadership from IUP. He has served as a law enforcement professional.
Beth, we're not hearing you again.
You'll be able to meet. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Dr. Beatty?
No questions. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear much of his overview because we were cut out, but welcome aboard, sir.
Okay. As our chair noted, are you all getting that feedback and an echo?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I am, but it's preferable, I think.
Yeah, we can, at least we hear you.
When you unmute, when whoever unmuted the camera that Beth is using, we heard her clear, but the other camera would need to be muted that's showing the other board members.
When I do, it closes you off. Like they can't hear you.
Okay, well, let's try that again. and
Okay.
Make sure that this.
Mic is open.
Okay.
Okay, is that better?
Mike,
Okay, then we'll hold. Okay, our chair alluded to an election that took place last Tuesday, a municipal election that resulted in nominees for the mayoral seat in the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. The Democratic nominee is Mr. Corey O'Connor, who is currently serving as the Allegheny County Controller. And the Republican nominee is Mr. Tony Moreno, a retired Pittsburgh police officer. The two will meet in November. And after that, we will have a determination by the people as to who the mayor will be taking office in January of 2026. The incumbent mayor, Ed Gainey, did not win the nomination. So we can anticipate there will be significant changes in the administration of the city come 2026. We will, of course, extend our hand to whomever becomes the mayor-elect and work to promote your mission and to enable our staff to do their job, which we, Mr. Wright and I, did reach out to the city solicitor last month and laid the groundwork for a meeting that should occur by mid-June with the solicitor regarding a number of issues related to access to information, access to body-worn camera, video, just to try to reframe the staff access to material that in the past we have received by right or by court order. The solicitor was out of town for a couple of weeks on personal business. That's why we didn't conduct that. The city solicitor, that is. We didn't conduct that meeting before tonight's meeting, but we'll get to it and you'll have a report on that by the June meeting.
But
Our
we don't have
intake-
a specific date, right? We just know it'll be in mid-June, no specific date.
A meeting with the city solicitor, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We've had 99 complaints logged and dealt with since the beginning of this year. That's 5 months. That's a little bit ahead of what our history has been, I believe. There have been some, well, locally, our chief of police, as you recall, we don't have a regularly appointed permanent, for lack of a better word, chief of police right now. We are back to an acting chief of police, Martin Devine. He has served since acting chief Ragland left. On Thursday, council will consider a resolution to extend the appointment of acting status to Chief Devine through February 1st of 2026. That is in anticipation of an administrative change and also to eliminate further disruption in the continuity of the management of the Bureau of Police. It's an unusual step, but it makes sense. Council will deal with that on Thursday, and if there's anything significant there, we'll let you know, but otherwise, I think it's fair to expect Chief Devine will continue in the acting status through February 1st of 2026. There was a significant Supreme Court decision last week related to the use of force and what should be informing officers as to when one is evaluating a use of force. What informed the officer to use force when the force was used and whether it was reasonable or unreasonable. You'll recall that there is a standard, the reasonable officer standard. And that essentially says that when a use of force is used, it should be looked at through the eyes of a similarly situated police officer and determine whether that officer would have more likely than not used the same approach as the officer who was being scrutinized. The Supreme Court made a ruling related to the moment of threat versus the totality of the circumstances. That is, the influences on the officer up to and including the use of force, as opposed to only the moment that the officer perceived a threat and used force, so that it expands the view of an incident toward determining whether the use of force was reasonable or excessive. You have always pursued your inquiries into the complaints that you receive to more of an eye toward totality of the circumstances, not understanding that officers are informed by things that happen in the course of the engagement with an individual, not just at a particular moment in time. We welcome that, I think, from an investigative standpoint, because there are oftentimes circumstances that inform an officer that something's going to go sideways, is not going to go good, and they have to be prepared to respond accordingly, and that gives them an opportunity to assess and determine what's their best course of action, least restrictive, least harmful. That was a positive coming out of the Supreme Court. In contrast, the Department of Justice has terminated the consent decrees with Minneapolis and Minneapolis and Louisiana. Now, there's some particular local history here of interest that the first consent decree in the United States was in fact levied with or struck between the City of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and the Department of Justice way back. That agreement lasted for a little over 5 years. There were at least 73 discrete requirements contained in that agreement. And the city responded to it a little bit, and they chafed a little bit about it. There's a little political consequence. There was some turmoil. It was also struck in April of 1997. You were created May of 97. And so there was always this commingling that you came out of the consent decree. The board did not come out of the consent decree. You came out independently based on a grassroots effort to create an independent method of police oversight. It happened simultaneously, but they were not related. So when the consent decree in the city of Pittsburgh was imposed, there were performance requirements. And our law enforcement professional members here actually were sworn officers and leadership at the time. And so they have a great deal of experience with what the consent decree intended, what it required, and then how it was complied with. Those consent decrees were used over the last 30 years for the purposes of intervening on patterns and practices that violated the civil rights of individuals by municipal authorities, particularly municipal police departments. The Minneapolis, of course, you'll recall 5 years ago, is George Floyd died at the hands of Minneapolis police. And in Louisiana, there was a number of incidents that drew the attention of the Department of Justice in the last federal administration. This current administration has determined that they are no longer high value, and so they've retracted them. They have also moved ahead with retracting allegations of police civil rights violations in a number of cities, including Phoenix, Trenton, Memphis, Mount Vernon, New York, Oklahoma City, the Louisiana State Police. And I think I misspoke before. The incident with Louisiana State Police had a number of incidents attached to it. The other consent decree was Louisville. That was actually just terminated and withdrawn completely. It was not Louisiana. Louisiana stood with allegations that they have since retracted. So we're seeing that there's been quite a change in the approach towards police accountability and the tools available to intervene when appropriate or when conduct is suspicious and suggests that civil rights violations are going on. And the Department of Justice will no longer be a watchdog in that regard. Locally, we had a number of police reforms. Right after the death of George Floyd, the city of Pittsburgh reacted very, very quickly and adopted a number of reforms. You may recall that former Mayor Peduto established a task force to come up with recommendations related to police reform. There were at least 16. It was a very lengthy 90-some page report that task force issued. We were not involved in that, unfortunately. But the recommendations are public. Some have been implemented. Many of them focused on recruitment issues and how to coach and retain officers and enhancing the humanity with which police conduct their work, vis-a-vis extending more dignity towards people that may face arrest or whatever that may be, that they have an encounter with a police officer about. There was also an effort to I think it was a national campaign, 8 Can't Wait. And that dealt with barring chokeholds and a duty to intervene. If an officer sees an officer doing something that's contrary to policy, then the officer who observes it must intervene. Efforts to create co-response units that can support and assist with issues that are perhaps not quite in need of law enforcement, but they do need help. They need some kind of an intervention. And we also had the local legislation that included barring the chokeholds and and the duty to intervene. Those things all amended the city code. There was also, excuse me, the traffic stop. If you recall, there was an effort to change how police responded and conducted traffic stops. That created controversy because it put the accreditation of the Bureau in jeopardy. So all of those reforms, none of them have actually been eliminated. They've been modified to some extent. There's also grown an Office of Community Health and Safety, which pretends to provide support services to people who have been marginalized, whether it's mental health, addiction problems, housing, whatever that may be. It's grown into a very large office within the Department of Public Safety. That they are conducting street-based responses. They do have a law enforcement diversion program. They have a reach out on the streets program. There's a number of things where they're providing support to the police officers. The additional measures that were taken by City Council included the creation of the Stop the Violence Fund. And that's a fund that receives money annually and offsets the cost of the Office of Community Health and some other service programs under the Department of Public Safety. That's based on a percentage to come into the Stop the Violence Fund based on a percentage of the Bureau of Police budget. They also banned the chokeholds. They banned the purchase of surplus military equipment. They require the duty to intervene if an officer sees something, to do something about it, to report it. And it is that flurry of activity that created the 2020 referendum questions related to the board's obligations and the board's authority. And it was that referendum, you will recall, passed 73% of the vote in 2020. And it further imposed upon city officials to cooperate with any board investigation and to provide what the board requires to conduct a thorough investigation. Recruitment efforts were expanded. I don't know so much that we can speak to that in terms of why recruitment has become a problem. We are still short-staffed, but there were some set aside so that measures could be put in place to bolster the recruitment efforts. In 2020, I believe it was, there were no classes. Peduto canceled any police class coming in, and in 2023, that was continued under Gainey, that there would be no classes put on, police classes. So as a result, we're very short now. We don't have a backfill for officers. We also have a $180,000 study that was conducted on the Bureau of Police Operations. Not sure what recommendations from that study are actually in implementation. You may recall that there was a conflict between those recommendations and what the then chief of police, Mr. Scarato, agreed was necessary to enhance the operations of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. So in terms of police reform and what has happened in the last 5 years since the murder of George Floyd, there have been significant efforts locally. At the state level, of course, there was the creation of the database where officers that separate based on a disciplinary action is recorded so that if they try to go to another location to be hired as a police officer, there's a record of why they left the other employment if it was discipline related. Then Governor Wolf created the Pennsylvania State Law Enforcement Advisory Commission, of which I actually served on that inaugural board. It was then succeeded by Governor Shapiro's CLEAR Commission with additional review authority over law enforcement agencies under the governor's office. There's a requirement now for applicants for police to be screened for PTSD. This state legislation also codified the requirement that applicants must meet 30% of the Cooper fitness standards in order to be physically fit enough to qualify to pursue an application to a municipal law enforcement agency. So a number of things. Here locally, we've been a little distracted with all the commotion around trying to keep a chief of police. The outcome and the shortage of officers, the changing in their scheduling, been a lot of distraction within the daily operations of the Bureau, but there is nothing indicating that there was a failure to implement those reforms that were intended to improve the relationship with the community as well as officer safety. So we'll keep an eye on those things. It's a positive thing. I mean, in spite of all the rest of it, the number of changes that were implemented and seem to be doing what they were intended to do. Is there anything I can answer with regard to local changes or local efforts to influence the accountability of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police?
And nothing to answer, just a comment that, we'll see, we have a new administration coming in, so we'll see what flavor that takes on as we go forward. And hopefully we will get a chief of police that will stay more than a couple months.
That's going to be an awesome undertaking, no question, and we would certainly assist in whatever way we can. Also, I failed to mention there was a significant report that you issued in partnership with the city controller, and that was the performance audit. And that was released in May of 2022. Very significant document, lots of recommendations within it. We have to do a look back to see what has been achieved and what hasn't. But again, organizationally, the issue of leadership in the Bureau of Police has really been a distraction. Hopefully we'll see a refreshed look at how we do policing in the city, and the chief of the bureaus under the Department of Public Safety will be able to manage their bureaus and have access to well-informed leadership for the purpose of resource, but not for commingling political agenda to the operations of any bureau.
At one of the meetings, I know that you had reported that this administration would allow a seat for someone, obviously you, to be on the selection committee. Do we have any reason to believe that wouldn't happen under the new administration?
No, we don't have any reason to believe that whichever administration comes in would be resistant to the board's participation in that process. And it was city council that was adamant about our inclusion in that process. It is the mayor's privilege and obligation to appoint, but that appointment takes effect with the consent of council. And council changed this process to require an interview under oath of any candidate being nominated for the appointment. So by the time a person gets to the appointment, the mayor can do whatever the mayor wants to do with regard to a nominee. But whatever assistance that city council may solicit is where we would be probably most appropriately helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the executive director?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment.
Sure thing.
Regarding Beth's review of the consent decree, I just wanted to add for the public's awareness, but certainly the board's awareness, that I think too, Karen Dixon will attest as well. I served under her leadership under the Training Academy. But I want to just point out the consent decree had its benefits. And I say this from an officer who looked negatively on the consent decree being imposed upon us initially. But where we gained benefit as a police department, which led us moving towards, I think, gaining accreditation to solidify some of these things. The consent decree benefited the police department and the citizens of Pittsburgh. And it benefited us in policy, it benefited us in training, it benefited us in accountability of our officers and tracking, and it benefited us in being more intentional and aware of our communities, the sensitivities to our communities. Now, some of the ways that was executed, some of the officers would have objection, but it made it priority for us to pursue these things. And I think we became a better professionalized department because of that. And I just wanted to add that because initially, as a police officer on the street, also maybe it was groupthink, I would say maybe, but it felt as if the consent decree coming upon us was viewed negatively. And in retrospect, I'm not saying from today's position, as we processed through it, I saw where we had much benefit. It used to be on a piece of paper that a police officer could use force back in the day and simply say, utilize enough force to effectuate arrest. That would never fly today. Like to be able to just say that if you used a certain amount of force on an arrestee and you have a one-line statement, that would never fly. You have to justify and account for all your actions. So I just wanted to let the board know, even as Beth, there's a certain sentiment right now that I totally object to when it comes to oversight and accountability. I don't think it needs to be utilized as a tool and a bludgeoning tool, but it is an effective tool to make sure officers are held accountable and then they operate with the professionalism that's expected of them for the entrustment of the authority that's been given to them. So I just wanted to add that note.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. That's an important note. And it took a while to process too, as you had said, for people to really begin to understand the positive effects of the decree. We have no unfinished business that I believe. Does anybody have any unfinished business? How about any old business? So we can do new business, but just as a reminder that it may be introduced but not deliberated. So does anybody have any new business they want to bring to the table? All right, hearing none, it is time for our case study review. And so we have 3 cases for full investigation. Let me make it a little bigger on my eyes here. Sorry. Case number 079-25, number 045-25, and number 027-25. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We have one for a 30-day extension, and that is case number 063-25. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We have one case that is unfounded, and that's case number 040-25. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. We have none that are unsustainable, and we have one other, and you can see the remarks there, for case number 024-25. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I will second it.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. We have 4 that are suspended, and they are case number 042-25, case number 039-25, case number 026-25, and 015-25. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll
I hear-
second.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And then again, folks, if you could see on your report, we have 21 continued suspensions summaries. And if anybody has any questions about these 21 cases, now is the time to ask. We won't vote on these, but this is the time for any discussion you might have. Okay, hearing none. That is the end of our case studies, or case review, I'm sorry. Too much academia today. Alrighty, so just before we go to public comment, it's just a reminder that our next regular meeting is Tuesday, June 24th, again at the Grayson Center. So again, it will also be available for those who can't make it by Zoom, and it will be on Facebook and Twitter, and it will be on our, the report will be on our website. Alrighty, now is the time for public comment. We'll start with anybody that is at the Grayson Center first. Is there anybody on the list? Steph, is there anybody on the list? You know?
There's no one in the center with anything, but there is someone online.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Is it-
Stephanie.
Q&A. Let me see. I think I could pull it up. It says here, oh, the Ozarks say hello and thank you for your good work. And we're waiting for Mr. Sheldon to post his remarks or question.
Mr.
I'm
Who?
sorry. I was just reading the comments there, and you read
Okay.
loud.
It says you're typing.
I was about to comment to them, just saying thank you, but then
Okay,
you
you
thank
can do. I mean, you guys, the Ozarks, you great folks. Thanks again for coming each month and advocating for the people of Pittsburgh. We appreciate you. Alrighty. No other, hearing that there's no other public comment.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Dr. Gershio. Yes,
Yeah.
there is someone with comment. I
Yes.
can't find-
Should I speak now?
There we go. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, council board members. My name is Matthew King. My apologies for not attending in public this time, but I will be there on June the 22nd. I will keep it for 3 minutes. I think that my 3 main topics here are transparency, communication. And when I relate those first 2, I'm talking about transparency between the City of Pittsburgh police officers, policies and procedures, especially with the new recruits that are coming out, and those policies being afforded to us to be able to see what their actual policies and procedures are. I relate that specifically to Beth's comment regarding these new officers, and we have 25 of them that are coming out in new training, right? And I have actually taken it upon myself, not deliberately to go out and audit these officers, but just been out and about in my daily routine and activities. I came into this interaction with Zone 4 police station while I was just out for the evening. And actually, the officers handled the situation fantastically. And specifically, to note, the officers that were newer officers were Officer P. Jenkins from Zone 4, badge number 3985, and Officer T. Burke, Zone 4, badge number 5003. And even though I was not involved in said interaction, I witnessed their handling of the situation. Now, sadly, the lead investigator, who is Officer Greer, in this situation, I was met with aggression. I was met with apprehensiveness, and his younger officers were able to de-escalate the situation. And I wanted to bring that to note because I was communicating to them what a great job they were doing. And then I took it to the level of actually contacting the commander of Zone 4. And I'd like to give commendation not only to those officers, but also to the commander of Zone 4 is Commander Hohas. He actually returned my phone call, appreciated the fact that I was giving commendations because they're actually few and far between these days that the officers are commended on their duties. However, the transparency and the training, I think, is extremely important moving forward, especially in relation to, a new mayor possibly coming in and how that's all going to shake everything up inside of the community that we all work in and we all live in. And the last point I wanted to make was to touch on when we're talking about George Floyd specifically and these officers being held accountable for their actions. I currently have an investigation with Miss Edwards, which the team has been handling wonderfully. And while the board members have not got to hear or see any of my evidence, I have a medical condition. I was denied medical services. And in light of that, I met with executive director or executive manager Aaron Bruni from OMI, along with the assistant public safety director, Mr. Schmidt. And the outcome of that was that OMI was not moving forward with anything. And I actually provided them with evidence that they did not have previously. And it was a 911 recording of an officer saying to me, "Oh, you have a medical condition? The next thing you're going to tell me is you can't breathe." Now, not speculating about what that meant, but I think we all know what that was referencing. That is an officer, in my opinion, that, should be either reviewed, reprimanded, and or spoken about in front of a judge. And lastly, Judge Terrence O'Brien, who I did my summary appeal hearing in front of, was probably the most clear, coherent, and cognizant judge that I've been in front of, who was able to understand that a city of Pittsburgh police officer was backing up another police officer in that course of action. And that's all I have to bring to the board's attention. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew. And just as a reminder, the meeting is on the 24th of June. Okay, at 6 o'clock there at the Grayson Center. So hopefully we'll see you then. Anybody want to respond or?
I have something to say.
Sure thing.
It just sounded, my apologies. I did put in the chat the link to the City of Pittsburgh's police policy manual.
Thank
Mr.
you.
King, you can go check that out. Find the policies and procedures. You may find what you're looking for there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see inside of the chat.
We'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. So, as Ms. Stephanie said that she will make sure that you get that. All right, and no other comments? Do we have a motion at 6:52 PM to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
thank you. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?